Welcome to the Challenges of Change, the podcast where we explore the transformative journey towards self-improvement and personal growth. I'm your host, Laura, a mindset coach in the health and fitness industry, here to guide you through the hurdles that life throws at you. In each episode, we'll delve into practical strategies and insightful discussions to help you manage stress, regulate your emotions, upgrade your mindset, and ultimately reclaim your sense of worth. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey of change, challenges, and self-discovery. And we are back for another episode of the Challenges of Change. And I am so excited to introduce you guys to our guest today because he is really, really special. His name is Eric. He is a coach for Change by Challenge. But before I let him introduce himself and you get to learn all about him, I want to tell you how I met Eric because it's one of those experiences where like the universe is unfolding for you. Uh, I did a speaking engagement at Moffitt Cancer Center, and Eric's girlfriend happened to be in the audience. And I didn't know that was his girlfriend because obviously I didn't know him. But I was chatting with her. She was super fun. And then the next thing I know, I get this message in my inbox about my girlfriend heard you speaking, and I'd be interested in learning more about what you do and potentially working for you. And I remember our very first conversation. He was very passionate. He was very curious. He was very eager to do the work and to really impact people. And through that journey, I asked him one question. What does satisfied look like for you? Which is a very hard question for people to answer because we tend to be dopamine people who are searching for our next thing. And what came to be our reality is I got to bring him on board. He got his coaching certifications, and I got to coach him and help him find more center and peace within himself. And now he gets to have that impact as well. So that's my experience of meeting Eric, but let's see how your experience of meeting Eric is. So, Eric, welcome.
Thank you so much. That is very exciting. Full disclosure, everybody, I didn't know Laura was going to tell that awesome story. So I am I am very excited about that. That was fun. Thank you so much.
So, naturally, before we dive into too much, what is satisfied now? We got to close the loop.
Man, yeah, close the loop. At the time, when you first asked that, I was dumbfounded. I had no idea what that looks like. But I think for me, in a lot of ways, it's realizing that there's no done in any sense, right? That when when I would, in a lot of ways, when I would think about what done looked like, it was it was having achieved, right? Like past tense, right? Like it's already, it's on the shelf. I can say it's there and it's done. But realizing more and more as I've, gone out of my way to try and do the work to the best of my ability, realize that who we want to be is just somebody who is regularly taking action, embodying the values that they believe are best for them. And so satisfied to me is regularly trying, and I use the word trying not with an asterisk, regularly trying to conduct myself in a way that I know I would be proud of. And some weeks I do a really great job, and some weeks I don't do a really great job. Not for lack of trying, but just because that's life. And so, satisfied is realizing that so long as I continue to do, I'll continue to be proud.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm not going to go into our whole conversation about doing versus resisting doing because that's not
Sure.
the purpose of this conversation. But beautiful answer. I mean, truly. And I think it's you're right. I did not warn you that I was going to tell that story. But the reason I did is because a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people come in chasing, not understanding exactly what you said, that done isn't a space you get to. It's more the consistent building one foot after the next and regularly growing and living in a way that honors your values and who you want to be and recognizing the days where you don't. It's not a reflection that you're a bad person. It's not a reflection your values aren't there. It's a reflection that you're freaking human. And
Mm,
I know in my own personal journey, connecting to common humanity has been like the thing of like, why are you being such an asshole to yourself, Laura? Like, you're a
Yeah.
freaking human. You can't be perfect. You're gonna make mistakes. And it's the best door to self-compassion I have ever found. So, loved how you put that together. Um, but before we dive too deep into the topic today, since this is kind of your first time on the podcast, help the listeners understand how you got here. Why coaching? Why mindset coaching? What is the
Sure.
difference you want to make?
Yeah, yeah. It's a oh man, talk about it. Another really broad question. So I since 2014, I've been a fitness coach, a personal trainer, nutrition coach, and I realized in sort of maybe the last 3, maybe 4 years that the sauce, at least in my opinion,
Mm,
is not necessarily, the thing that I realized in coaching people for, over a decade was just that like change, people come to you as a personal trainer to make change, right?
mhm.
In their minds, they want to get into a certain size or they want to weigh less or they want to, look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? They want change, but there have been so many times where somebody nails a squat, gets the confidence, goes in and asks for the raise, and then comes to me and cancels their subscription and just goes, "Thanks, Eric, I got everything I needed." That was awesome. And it was like, oh, you didn't know what kind of change you needed. You just were utilizing it in the fitness or the health and wellness space because that was something you felt you could action.
Hmm.
And I started to guide a lot of my fitness clients down that direction of maybe this person needs organization, or maybe this person just needs to build a little bit of confidence in
Yeah.
their interpersonal communication. Maybe this person, and as I started to have these conversations with my clients, and at the time only really having a background in nutrition and exercise and movement, studied a little bit in motivational interviewing, studied a little bit of change psychology, very minute, but I started to notice that my clients were getting better and better results.
Yeah.
And that was so unbelievably rewarding that is why I got into coaching in the first place, right? So all the way back to 2014, I also didn't know what kind of change I maybe needed. I didn't know what satisfied was back in 2014 either. And I knew I could control fitness. I knew I could control health and wellness. I knew I wanted longevity. I want what, a lot of us want is to live this beautiful ride as many possible years as we can. And a big piece of that is get more sleep, drink lots of water, eat fruits and veggies, etc. And so I learned how to help other people do that while doing it for myself.
Hmm.
And then I realized, a little bit further down the line that wasn't all I needed, right?
Yeah.
Because even getting to a healthier place, I still didn't have, X, Y, or Z. And as we just talked about, I never will. But I can get closer. I can get closer to a contentment.
Mm. Yeah, it's the and I'm sure, the listeners are drawing correlations between the my origin story as a personal trainer, seeing a lot of the
Mm,
similarities and what people thought they wanted, what versus what they actually wanted, versus seeing it as a domain where they could actually have a little more control.
mm.
And it's something that's not commonly talked about in like the training or coaching world of like how our clients impact our own awareness. And by
Oh yeah.
witnessing my clients, or for you witnessing your clients kind of migrate through the healthy physical pillars, it's like there's this lingering like stepsister on the outside of like mental health and emotional well-being. It's like, how does this factor into health? And
Right.
what do we want to do and how much of an impact does that actually play in everything else? So, um, well said. I obviously totally agree. Kind of same road.
You can
Um,
relate.
and before we jumped on, I asked Eric kind of what was top of mind and what he'd been hearing with his clients and things of that nature. And what he said was environment and how our environment, both internal and external, impacts us in ways we don't see, and how our lack of awareness around our environment can cause some chaos.
Totally. Totally. And I think similarly to, as I was saying before about that change in my career where clients, would come thinking, hey, I want to lose X amount of weight when really what they wanted was to have a difficult conversation with their partner, and having the confidence to be able to deadlift gave them the confidence to say, hey, can we have this difficult conversation? I think the same thing can be true when it comes to our environments, right? In that, and I don't just mean like, is your, kitchen messy, or, is your desk at work messy, is you know
Yeah.
the phrase "take care of your home," or "get your house in order" can
Hmm.
sometimes mean your mind, right? And so I think that plays so much into it, and I don't think we think about that when we're making action.
I totally agree. And it's funny because, I have ADHD, so I organize and stack. So as you're talking about like, is your kitchen or office clean? I'm like, no, they're disorganized, but they make sense to me.
Mhm.
And to certain people, if they came into my space, it would make them activated. It would irritate them. And
Mm,
there's an exercise that we do with clients sometimes of like decluttering the external to declutter the internal. Because a lot of times, how people draw attention to their internal
yeah,
ecosystem is by recognizing kind of the chaos in their external ecosystem. Um, so I'm curious, guys, that kind of like a jumping off point. Like, yes, obviously, having an organized space for most people is helpful.
yeah.
But how do you see this influencing people when they're unaware of their internal ecosystem and the internal environment?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's taking action to make change in your life that's simple, and then there's taking action that's easy, right? And so the concept is very simple, right? And
Mhm.
so some individuals will have a coaching conversation. I'll give them some action items. Hey, why don't you try this out, or why don't you work to limit this, right? And they'll have a really great week, and then the next week they'll be like, I don't understand why this is so hard. It seems so easy. It seems simple, but
Mhm.
last week, right, you didn't have three sick kids, right? And you didn't have car trouble, and you didn't have a lot of these things in your environment that are no fault of your own, but still are affecting you. Right. This week, while we're recording right now, it is American Thanksgiving. And so, this week has a lot of moving parts for everybody imaginable. And so, this week is different, right? This isn't a normal, end of July week where there's really nothing going on for most people,
Right.
no holidays, et cetera. And so that can play into it, right? You had a cattywampus week where you weren't working your normal hours, and so it was hard to fit in walks, or it was hard to fit in journaling or meditation, because you usually, I like to say, you hang. You stack a habit, or you hang that habit on, oh, when I get out of work, I'm going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to journal. Well, if you don't have work because you have holiday all week, then where are you going to fit that in, right? And then it becomes a little bit more difficult, even though it seems simple. It's not easy. And so understanding that your environment is always changing and taking stock and finding that awareness of, oh, what are the moving parts of my week? What about the people that I take care of, or the people who help take care of me? Are they out of commission? Am I out of commission? Do I need to check my temperature? Am I getting a fever? Right? All of these things that we may just want to keep going, going, going. Right? I'm an action oriented person. We talked many times. Sometimes I don't stop, and that can really affect the way in which I take action or don't.
Yeah, and I think it's ironic that we're talking about it now because I am in Chicago because the holiday is this week. And when I first started coming back for the holidays, I moved in 2020, right when I become a coach. So I became this new kind of iteration of myself to the point my family literally calls me like the new Laura. Um, and the new Laura had boundaries. And the new Laura didn't just go with the flow. She wasn't just a peacekeeper, and she really wanted to
Mm.
honor herself. And being in my childhood home, it was wild to see how much it impacted me. So my plan was, all right, I know what my, normal things are that I do to set myself up for success. I'll wake up, I'll meditate, I'll read, I'll work out, shower, and then I go into the day. And I was like, all right, I'm going to keep that consistent because that's like my mental priming. That's going to keep my head going. And then because I knew I was in a stressful environment, I'm going to meditate in the middle of the day and go for a walk after work. That was my plan. I did all those things, and the results I had hoped for were not realistic. And
Oh no.
then the next year, I did the same thing, same outcome, didn't deliver the same thing. I think it was, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years of repeating the same cycle of trying to externally plan versus internally prepare.
Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that.
And that was one of the big things that I learned either year 3 or 4 of like, I can meditate the entire freaking day. I can be goddamn Buddha for all I want. But when I'm in an environment that has a lot of triggers for me, that's not going to change how my nervous system responds. And I noticed two things. One, my mom is, I'm very blessed that my parents are super respectful of my space. They understand the demands on my plate. And my mom and I are really good at communicating to make sure that I'm honoring the time that I absolutely want to share with her. And so she's not
Mhm.
waiting around on me because she's got a life. So she'll go play golf, she'll go see friends when I'm working. And it was a
Excellent.
great balance. And then what happened was she wouldn't be home and I would be stressed. And I was like, why am I stressed out? Like I meditated, I did all my morning stuff, I did all the priming, all the external preparation. And as we learn as coaches, you get curious when you experience shit. So I got curious. And what I realized was even though my mom wasn't home, I was anticipating, I was hyper vigilantly
Mm,
preparing for her or someone in my family to come into the room. I was home alone, so no one could do that, and tell me they needed something from me.
wow.
And I was like, well, why would that be such a stressor for me? And I'll just cut straight to the point because I had a hard time saying no. I had a hard time protecting my boundaries and what I needed. And
Mhm.
our job is very client facing. So when my family heard me talking, they never would come in and interrupt. But we also do recaps for our clients. So after I'm done talking, I would do our recap. And that's when my family would come in and I love them. I want to prioritize them, but then I would feel this stress pressure. So this like weird environmental like nervous system capturing, right?
Absolutely.
And so what I did to change it is I learned that you can't be connected to yourself while you're trying to protect yourself.
Hmm,
Yeah,
I like
let's
that.
let that land for a second because it doesn't make sense, right? Like we think if I'm protecting myself, I'm connected to myself, but if you think of the energy of it, protecting yourself, I'm trying to keep everything out. I don't want anyone's stuff to come in. Here's the wall, the protective wall, my armor, my pleasing, my performing, my boundaries, whatever it might be. But all that external preparation was me trying to protect myself, not me
Right.
being connected to the preparation I needed inside to understand and recognize, or as you would say, take stock of where was I? And whether you're visiting your childhood home or not, to your point, sick kids, poor sleep, a work project, a friend struggling with something. All of these things have a toll on us, but yet we just expect ourselves to just be these perfectly operational machines that are never affected by any of it.
Absolutely.
So, how do you help people take stock for themselves?
Definitely. Those those emotions, right? I was mentioning a client came to me and said, "Why can't I do this?" Right? That frustration, right? That emotion is wanting to do something different, right? Not being aligned with where they want to be, right? So that's an alarm bell first and foremost. So
Yeah.
I definitely let clients know, hey, thank you for bringing that to me. But that should also be something for yourself. Like, hey, what's going on here? That's the moment where you want to stop, you want to pause, and you want to say, what's going on in my environment? Like,
Mm,
what's going on in my world? Or not just right now, maybe, like you said, a work project. Maybe you just got done with a work project and you had adjusted your entire schedule for the 90 days that it took to get through that work project. And now you're on the other side and you have all this free time and you don't know what to do with it, or, as you were saying, with your family, the minute that they hear you stop talking, they come running in the room, right?
yeah.
Now that you have all this free time because the work project is done, now maybe everybody is asking you for that extra time and you had really planned on getting that painting done that you had started or whatever it might have been during
Mhm.
that free time. But now, all boats rise to the level of the tide. So in that moment of realizing, not only is what is going on right now, that is causing things to seem quote unquote hard or just not in alignment, what went on 5 minutes ago, what went on 5 days ago, what's been going on that is different from maybe what you expect, right? As you said, yes, my favorite way of saying it is take stock. How can you take stock of everything that's going on in your life, and what is the intersectionality, right? I think that we get definitely bogged down in comparing ourselves to other people, right? I do that very often, right? I don't work out like David Goggins does, right? But there's a reason why we know his name and we
Yeah.
don't know a lot of other names, right? Because he is the exception, not the rule. You can't compare yourself to a guy who gets to work out professionally, right? You have lots of other things on your plate that make it so you can't compare. But I think very often we compare, but the most difficult comparison is when we compare ourselves to our former selves, right? And so you're not going to handle things today at 45 with kids and a career like you did when you were 21 in college with no job and no responsibilities. Who you were then and who you are now are two very different people. And you have to give yourself that grace that you have responsibilities and you have things that you enjoy and like to do now that you didn't like to do then. And so, there just isn't that space at this time, and that's your environment, and that's okay. And giving yourself that grace, reminding yourself of those things, and also to say that this could just be a season, right? That work project, that sickness, whatever it might be, that all those things are going to end at some point and you can move forward. Or like you learned being, at home for the holidays, you just got to change a few things. You just got
Hmm.
to change a few things when you're in that new space, when you're in this season, when you're in this environment. Maybe what you used to do in a different environment, what you used to do at a different season, need to change ever so slightly and just continue to try and find that realignment.
Mm. Sounds simple, but not easy. Yeah.
Not even in the slightest.
So let's hear a little bit about how you've skilled this. I hear judgment, I hear comparison, I hear this like underlying desire just to be okay, to do the quote unquote right thing.
Mm.
And it's a hard perception to grasp because we are such evolutionary creatures.
Mhm.
So, as you've gone through your own growth, how have you learned to take stock and recognize how your internal or external environment are affecting you? And what role has judgment played?
Boy, yeah, judgment is usually front and center, which I think is something that I had to learn the hard way.
Mm,
And, you know, unfortunately, I think my, my go-to in a lot of ways, which I think many people can relate to, is I start with, there's a problem, right? And for many of us, a problem needs fixing.
mhm,
And sometimes problems don't necessarily need fixing, right? I think for me, one of the first things that I learned about myself was whenever I would have a problem, right, I would treat it kind of like, I'll say tongue in cheek, like Western medicine does, right? I don't treat the root cause, right? I just kind of treat the symptoms. I just kind of put a band aid on a flesh wound until it's better for a little while, right? And then I keep moving, right? And I haven't in the past. This is a skill that I'm currently upskilling right now. This is a sword that I'm currently sharpening, learning what is the root of quote unquote problem. How do I keep finding myself in this problem pattern
mm.
and going to that root cause? Right. I think that's a really difficult thing for me to master, but it's been super helpful to understand. Um,
But
Trying
also
to
to
think.
slow down. I know those are your two favorite words, slow and down. Down slow,
Uh,
you're cool with, but the slow down
Absolutely.
one, not the biggest
Yeah.
fan of.
Once those two go together, right? I had a experience recently where um, I had a problem, right? And I have an action bias personally, right? I always think
Mhm.
that I need to be doing something because if I'm doing something, right, then I think that I'm getting closer and closer. But as it turns out, the issue that I was facing, it was interpersonal communication, right? The only thing that was going to make that communication better was to do nothing, right? I was already where I needed to be
I mean, we can
doing.
we can have this conversation again because guys, we coached about this, and where I stand is that resisting an action, resisting an impulse to defend, to say something, even to just act, resisting action is an energetic action. Like
Yeah.
most people actually struggle restraining themselves. That's how much of an action it is. We
Mhm.
struggle to manage ourselves and lead ourselves. And this
Yes.
is a conversation Eric and I have had about what constitutes an action. And I forget what the
Mhm.
line was, but there was one line in one of our coaching sessions that, do you remember the one where it was like literally, I said something about resisting action being the energetic toll, and you're like, holy crap, that is action of itself. And I'm like,
Yes, 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 yes.
right?
That was a really hard concept for me to grasp because I feel as though not taking action is
Hmm.
just that. It's not taking action, but you immediately, put it in such an eloquent way where you said, yes, but for you, it takes energy to not take action.
Hmm.
Therefore, in and of itself, that is an action, right?
Yeah.
And, in so many ways, doing nothing, choosing to do nothing is still choosing to do something. It's still a choice, right? You're
Like
still acting.
meditation is the perfect example of that. And I know that's something you've
Absolutely.
been practicing is like
Mhm.
being there and being okay with not doing because we have this action bias, but also this distortion of what rest is. And
Mhm.
the metaphor or analogy that continues to pop in my brain is like we are creatures of nature in general. And if you plant a seed and you're like, okay, is it working? And you pull it out of the ground, you just killed the seed. Congratulations, you
Yes.
took an action and you
Mhm.
killed the entire potential of that action, right?
Mhm.
I think it's
Mhm.
more of a bigger scope to understand and be more intentional and strategic about the actions you want to take, why you want to take them, what you think it will give you or not give you, if an actual physical action is the best option right now, and what within my environment, internal and external, is influencing me to think that I do need to do something.
Absolutely. And I think for me, in a lot of ways, that specific situation I was talking about, I wasn't thinking about the outcome.
Mhm.
The ultimate outcome that I wanted needed me to not take any action. But it felt so foreign to want an outcome so bad and then not do anything to get there and to learn, the hard way that not
Oh,
doing anything was actually obtaining that in the long run.
yeah. It one of the humbling experiences of personal growth, whether you're new or you've been doing it for years, is you are going to run into the same types of walls over and over and over and over and over again until you're ready to face whatever you're
Mhm.
supposed to learn from it. And that's why they say like pain is the best teacher because within each moment of pain, you can choose to try and escape it, avoid it, evolve from it, or understand it. Like there's a one of like my favorite like universal laws is Kidlin's law, which says a problem clearly defined is 50% solved. And so
Yeah,
often, our brain is a problem-solving device. It is a primitive feature. We want to know what we're solving for. So if we're perfectly freaking fine, we'll still have a problem. And then life can go to shit. And that problem we originally thought we had means nothing. And now all these other very, very real pertinent problems are taking our attention, which makes me question our perception of the problems we think are problems to begin with that we're solving for. Are they
yeah.
even problems?
It's the real fascinating bit that it all seems relative, right? But circling back around to that awareness of
Mhm.
what's going on around you and putting certain issues next to each other, as you're saying, some things seem trivial, but again, it's all relative to what you need. But I love that. I want to write that down as we're saying it. Knowing what you're trying to solve for is 50%. It's already 50% done.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you, like I had this moment a couple weeks ago where I came home from like an amazing conference and I don't know what was going on in my system, if I was just excited and inspired or if the travel kind of wore me down, to your point, like environment changing, who the hell knows. But I ended up getting sick. And then I normally have like 48-hour bounce back rate for my illnesses. And
Nice.
I wasn't having a bunch of like clogged nose or like sinus symptoms, but my energy was shit. Like no
Mm.
matter what I did, I could not get my energy up. I literally drank a Celsius to try and have a client session,
Ooh.
and I was falling asleep in the client session. And after the session, like an hour after I chugged a 200 milligrams or whatever is in the freaking Celsius, I napped, and I'm not a napper. And I was like, what the hell is happening? So
Uh,
after about 5 days of me being like irritated with being having low energy, I was like, hold on. I'm looking at low energy as a problem. Why? Why is that a problem to have low energy? Isn't that just part of being human? Of course it is. So, I mean, it would make sense. I've been sick. I'm excited about all these things, but I don't have the space to actually implement them. I'm making up for lost time that I was gone. So,
mhm.
like, sure, I could see how the environmental factors were influencing it, but at the end of the day, by going behind the perception of what I thought a problem was, I actually understood there wasn't a problem. I was just resisting my experience because I didn't like it. And how many people do we talk to where that's exactly what they're experiencing?
Oh, I'm going to go out on a limb and say all of them.
Yeah, it really is because we don't
Yeah,
understand the problems.
and that's so human. It's so
Yeah.
very human,
Yeah.
and I think that's beautiful because by again, I'm going to say it again. It's coming back around. Once you know what it is, once you know what the solution is, half the problem is already fixed.
Yeah.
And I think that circles back around to why I became a coach in the first place, is I want to help people figure out what it is they actually want.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that's like one of the keys to actually being a good coach is being able to help people see whatever you think you want, unless you've asked yourself like a minimum of five whys and really looked at what you think you're gonna get if you get that thing, like from an emotional standpoint, you might not even realize what you actually want. And, I've said this before in the podcast, but like we tend to try and solve inside problems, so lacking sensations of an emotion with external
Mm,
solutions. So if
yeah.
I'm not feeling confident enough, I might need to like want a promotion. If I'm not feeling happy, I might want a bigger house. Like we attach this idea of if I get physical things, then it'll make me feel blank, whatever that like lacking emotion is. And it does for a moment, and then it goes away and the lack
Mhm.
comes back. And that's one of the dead ringers, how you can know like the problem and solution domains are not the same. But given the fact that we're talking about taking stock of our environment and recognizing and having the awareness to be compassionate, to be human, why do you feel like even taking stock is a problem? Because a lot of people simply just resist visiting their internal environment.
Oh, oh, I was just about to say, very often, sometimes we think, oh, I need to change my internal, or no, you think I need to change my external environment, as you were saying, but really it's the internal and vice versa.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to change our external environment. And we're like, well, if I could just tell myself I'm happy enough, I can handle this, right? When really, maybe it is your external environment that needs to change, and we don't necessarily see that. I think it's, that misalignment can make us frustrated.
Yeah, I think there needs to be like this congratulations, you finished college. Here's Adulting 101 course for like
Oh
everyone
my
to like
gosh.
learn how to be like a better leader to yourself because regardless of the parents you had, parents are human beings. They're all going to fuck up to some degree.
Absolutely.
And at a certain point, like they can only guide you to a certain height because they're not you. They don't have your
Exactly.
intuition. They don't have your wisdom. They don't have your life experience. So at a certain point, there is this handoff of like, okay, I have this foundation, these things I like, things I don't. And now I have to go inside to my internal
Mhm.
environment to see what skills I have and what skills I don't, and where I want to build and how I want to lead. Because, I mean, how many people, well, I'll answer everyone we talk to has a shitty inner critic who just beats themselves up from the inside. And like, if you think about an external manager speaking to you the way you speak to yourself, you would never stay at that job. Yet we let that be the persistent voice that continues to just yammer at us inside because what? We're trying to motivate ourselves? Shitty leadership.
I'm telling you. And in a lot of ways we just lost my train of thought.
That's
I'm so
okay.
sorry.
Don't worry about it.
It's part of being human, right?
It is part
Um,
of being human.
it's gone. It's gone forever.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about the brain. When it's meant to come back, it will. And maybe
Mhm.
that's next episode. Who the hell knows?
Next episode. Check it. Tune in next week.
Yeah. So, as we kind of bring things to a close, we've covered a lot of ground. I would love to know what are your kind of like one or two key messages you want the listeners to walk away with, and what's one action you think they could take to help them find a better internal leader?
I love that. I think the piece of advice is it's okay if you don't know how. I think first and foremost, you were saying, there should be a class. There should be, it should be a mandatory class that everybody needs to take as soon as they graduate, their highest form of education, and they go into the real world and they start paying taxes and they start having to yada yada. You know, again, to your point of, parents just so happen to be two people who had a kid. They didn't apply for a permit to become a parent. They didn't get education to become a parent. They just sometimes it's an accident. And, ultimately, right, they did the best that they possibly could. And you developed a coping strategy on how to get through difficult times without being told how to cope. You just kind of developed it. And when you go to take action,
Mm,
right, whether it be to change external or internal environment, you may not have strategies that you're proud of. And you may not be aware that you are not proud of those strategies. You might just get frustrated. And so not knowing how is okay.
yeah.
I think an action item is advice that I'm trying really hard to take for everybody, and that's to slow down.
Oh, your
If
favorite two
you,
words.
my favorite two words, if you are frustrated with the actions that you're taking or not taking, that's the moment to slow down and start asking yourself questions. As you said, was coaches, first thing we do is we get curious,
Mm.
start asking as many questions as we can about why things are happening, not just getting mad that they are, right? Why is there, you ask me this question very frequently. Why is there a resistance, right? Where is this resistance coming from? Ask yourself that same question, right? What has gone on over the last 5 months, 5 minutes, 30 seconds, right? That's causing this frustration. And as you start to get curious, more of those solutions will become present and 50% of the problem will get answered. So
Mm.
it's okay if you don't know, but slow down and start asking yourself questions.
Yeah.
It'll go a long way.
I think that's great advice. I totally agree. One of my favorite things to say, and you've heard me say it before, is I have no idea what I'm fucking doing. Like none of us really do. Um,
Absolutely.
like, people will ask me all the time, like how I coach, and I'm like, intuitively, but like, there's so many skills that I've learned and then developed, and now
Mm.
it just feels intuitive, but it wasn't. And trying to break it down is weird. Or how did I grow my business? I'm like, I don't know. Like I just kept doing things and trying and figuring it out, right? So like when you relinquish the pressure of feeling
Mm.
like you should know, and you go into that curious space to get clear about what the problem is you're focused on. Is it a problem to begin with? You actually release a lot of the frustration, and it's probably one of the best ways to actually solve the problem. Because I know what I shared when I was like frustrated with my low energy when I did journal, I did get clarity. Not only to, okay, I'm just resisting the fact that I'm feeling low energy and like that's why I'm viewing it as a problem. But as I continued to journal, I saw what that perception was stopping me from and the unconscious filters I had put in of like, oh, I need to finish these things before I do that. Says who? Me. Me. I was saying. So
Right.
my kind of addition to Eric's insights is definitely slow down because there is information you do not have. And when we have more information, we're destined to make a better decision. And when you're looking at that information, see what unconscious filters are at play in your internal and external environment? Are you thinking where I have to get it all done in order to do this?
Mm,
Are you setting unconscious kind of deadlines for yourself or having perfectionist standards to try and protect yourself?
yeah.
But what I do like that you kind of honed in on towards the end is that a lot of times we gain awareness of our internal resistances by observing how we're experiencing our external environment. So when you don't know, if you're getting more annoyed with the same situation you might experience every day, maybe something's up. Maybe,
Maybe.
right? Well, Eric, this was truly a treasure. I am so happy you're part of our team. I'm so happy that you get to make the difference you crave. And if you are a listener who is ready for some of his magic, because it is truly magical, please do not hesitate to reach out and go and visit his Action Bias blog. Very much reiterates on some of the bias of doing versus not doing and the perception of energetic toll that we started to tap on. But thank you for your presence and your wisdom.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys next episode. Hey guys, it's me. I just want to pause you for a brief moment because there's something important that I think you need to know about. So often when I'm in sessions, I hear people talking about how lonely they are, how anxious they are, and we really do need each other. And I've seen through a lot of my corporate work the power of growing and evolving together. So I am super excited to announce that I have launched my community, the Challengers Circle, where you get to come in, become a challenger, connect with other people going on personal growth journeys, understand what the circumstances are like, share your challenges, and see how similar we all are. And there are so many resources in there to help you, from a personal coach to guide you through it, different chat rooms to share experience, different labs where you can literally practice boundary setting, practice saying no, practice regulating your nervous system. Whatever it is that your challenge is, we have created such an in-depth platform that can really, really help you create the change you want to see, because it's not just about the information. It's not just about knowing. It's about the ability to apply. And because we believe in this so wholeheartedly, we are giving anyone who joins a full free month of everything that we offer with the personal guidance of a coach to make sure you are supported, you are accountable, and you are being guided through. And after those 30 days, you can decide which level works for you. If you want to stay in the free level, that is perfect. We want to see what you use. And between now and the end of the year, if you do decide that one of the paid tiers is what's best for you, we are offering $100 off to anyone who joins before 2026. So if you are ready to accept the challenge, truly enact the change that you've always craved in your life, now is the time, and we have created the zone, the arena for you. It's time to come home to yourself, and that is what the Challenger Circle stands for. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Challenges of Change. If you're ready to stop stressing and reclaim your sense of worth, be sure to visit my website at www.changebychallenge.com. There, you'll find loads of resources, blog posts, and information on how to work with me, Laura, as your personal mindset coach. Remember, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Don't let burnout or any other obstacle hold you back from living your best life. Take the first steps towards positive transformation today. Thank you again for listening. Stay confident, stay inspired, and embrace the challenges of change. Until next time.